Hello everyone, myself Dr. Jitender Rai, faculty in MCA department from Tecnia Institute Advanced Studies. Today I deliver lectures on Servlet technology. Servlet technology is used to create a web application, resides at server side and generate dynamic web page. Servlet technology is robust and scalable because of Java language. Before Servlet, CGI Common Gateway Interface scripting language was popular as server-side programming language, but there was many disadvantages of this technology. We have discussed these advantages below. There are many interfaces and classes in the Servlet API such as Servlet, Generic Servlet, HTTP Servlet, Servlet Requeue, Servlet Response, etc. What is a Servlet? Servlet can be described in many ways depending on the context. Servlet is a technology such that used to create a web application. Servlet is an API that provides many interfaces and classes including documentation. Servlet is an interface that must be implemented for creating any servlet. Servlet is a class that extends the capability of the servlets and responds to incoming requests. It can respond to any type of request. Servlet is a web component that is deployed on the server to create dynamic web pages. There are various types of features we can show in the Servlet technology and we can define in the Servlet technology. Servlet is a technology used to create web application, and we can use this application is to develop the website development and all online application we have to develop. I can show in the diagram. First, client send the request to server, then server accept the request of client, then revert back to server response to client, then client access the web pages of the servlet. There are to define the servlet lifecycle. Servlet lifecycle can be defined as the entire process from its creation till the destruction. The following are the path followed by a servlet. Number 1, the servlet is initialized by calling the init method. First, we can call the init method. After that, the servlet calls service method to process a client request. Then third method is the servlet is terminated by calling the destroy method. Finally, servlet is a garbage collected by the garbage collector of the JVM. JVM is the stand for Java Virtual Machine. JVM is provide the security of the servlets. Now let us discuss the lifecycle method in details. The init method. First, the init method is designed to be called only once. It is called when the servlet is first created and not called again for each user request. So it is used for one-time installation. Just as with the init method of the applet, the servlet is normally created when a user first invokes a URL corresponding to the servlet, but you can also specify that the servlet be loaded when the server is first started when a user invokes a method. So we can call first the init method. The init method is designed to call only once. The servlet is a single instance of each servlet get created with each user request resulting in a new thread that is handled off to do cat and do post as appropriate. The init method simply creates loads some data that will be used to throughout the life cycle of the servlet. So first we can call the init method. The init method definition look like this. And how can we declare the init method? Public void init throws a servlet exception initialization code. Then this is the second service method. The service method is the main method to perform the actual task. The servlet container such that web server call the service method to handle the request coming of the client browsers and to write the formatted response back to the client. Each time the server receives a request for a servlet, the server spawns a new thread and call the service method. The service method check the HTTP request type get and post put the delete etc method and calls do get, do post, do put, do delete etc. Methods are approved. So we can use service method to handle all requests coming from the client side. Here is the signature of this method. Public void service bracket servlet request method comma servlet response, then servlet exceptions comma input out exception bracket close. The service method is called by the container and service method invokes do get, do post, do put, do delete etc. Method as appropriate. So you have to nothing to do with service method, but you override either do get or do post depending on what type of request you receive from the client. So the do get and do post are the most frequently used method with each service request. Here is the signature of these two methods. Number 1, the do get method. How can we use the do get method in the servlet? A get request result from the normal request for a URL of from the HTML forms that has no method specified. It should be handled by do get method. And how to declare do get method? Public void do get bracket HTTP servlet response request comma HTTP servlet response again servlet is the object, bracket close, throws servlet exception, comma input exception, bracket close, then servlet code. After that we can close this bracket. The method is the do post method. The post method requires results from an HTML form that specify list post as the method, and it should be handled by the do post method. How can declare be do post method? And write syntax of do post method. Public void do post HTTP servlet request, comma HTTP servlet response, then the response throws servlet exception, comma input exception, bracket close, and in the bracket method servlet code right here and close the bracket. And the last method is the destroy method. The destroy method is called only once at the end of the life cycle of the servlet. This method gives your servlet as a chance to close database connection, halt background threads, write cookie list, or hit count to disk, and perform other such cleanup activities. After the destroy method is called the servlet object marked for garbage collection. The destroy method definition look like this: public void destroy method, close the bracket, then declare the finalization code and close the bracket. And next we can define the architecture of the servlet lifecycle. The following figure depict a lifecycle servlet lifecycle. This is the scenario. First, the HTTP request coming to a servlet. In that diagram, first the HTTP request coming to the servlet are delegated to the servlet container. The servlet container load the servlet before invoking the service method. Then the servlet container handle the multiple requests by spooling multiple threads, each thread executing the service method for a single instance of the servlet. In the diagram, this is the Java virtual machine diagram. First the servlet container, then servlet container send the request to thread 1 to init method and call to service method and call to destroy method. After that, service method sent back to result to servlet container, and servlet container sent back to request to web server, and client receive this request by servlet by Java virtual machine, and they can access this method. After the ending of servlet, how can we define the application of web application? A web application is an application accessible from the web. A web application is composed of web component like servlet, JSP, filter, etc. and other components such as HTML. The web component typically execute in web server and responds to a HTTP request. How can we differentiate between the CGI, common gateway interface, and other servlet technology? CGI technology enables the web server to call an external program and pass HTTP request information to the external program to process the request. For each request, it start a new process. So we can use, if the CGI technology, so we can send the request multiple times, and after the accept request, they can access the servlet technology. Disadvantages of CGI: there are many problems in CGI technology. Number 1, if number of client increasing, it takes more time for sending responses. Number 2 advantage: for each request it start a process and web server is limited to start process. Number 3 disadvantage of CGI: it uses platform dependent language such that C, C++ per language. And there are some other differences as compared to CGI. Advantage of servlet technology: there are many advantages of servlet technology over CGI. The web container create threads for handling the multiple requests to the servlet, and threads have a lot of benefit over the processes, such as they share a common memory area, lightweight, cost of communication between the threads are low. The basic benefit of the servlet are as follow. Number 1, better performance because it creates a thread for each request, do not process. Number 2, portability because it uses Java language. Number 3, robust. Servlets are managed by JVM, so we don't need to worry about memory leak, garbage collection, etc. Number 4, secure because it uses language. So in that process, in that lectures, we can compare the CGI and other servlet technology, and they can show that the CGI is compared to servlet is more better as compared to CGI.